Hello and welcome to the Curiosity and Consciousness podcast. The intention of this podcast is to open your mind, get curious about yourself and connect to the power you hold within. I am your host, Karen Maloney, an inside-out coach, helping you to believe in yourself and manifest your desires. Check out the podcast, available on all platforms, and go to my website, www.karenmaloney.com for all info. Welcome back, everybody. Happy Thursday, and thanks for joining for this episode. And I have another wonderful guest for you this week. And this week, joining me is Cindy James. And Cindy helps deeply caring people get unshakable confidence in themselves so that they can attract and master gobs of money and oodles of power without compromise. And with the full support of the divine forces of creation. A former top corporate litigation attorney, she is now a practitioner of universal law, she likes to say, rather than man-made law. Cindy is a planetary force for truth. Her mission is to merge the heart of humanity with the soul of money to create a better world for all. Trained in many different modalities, including an Advanced Pranic Healing Practitioner, a certified Holy Fire Reiki 3 Master, a Master Level Sound and Vibrational Healing Practitioner, as well as a certified life coach and holistic health coach. Cindy serves global freedom, prosperity, joy, and all the good things we long for via the Prosper App Plus, the Galactic Council of Women, all genders welcome, the Prosper Plus YouTube channel, and the Prosper Plus podcast. I really enjoyed connecting with Cindy, and she talks exactly about universal law and what that is versus man-made law, and also talks about how she was really good at man-made law or human law, and she could argue inside out as a lawyer, but she got really bad IBS and didn't feel great. And for reasons during her 4th pregnancy, she stopped working, and she really delved deep into all sorts of modalities and healings and realized the power in self-transformation. And she focuses and helps people with money and coming out of the lack and scarcity mindset, because there is enough abundance for everyone. But she talks about how it takes us to reconnect to our childhood imagination and to see ourselves differently and to keep choosing differently, because we do have the divine forces available to us. So this is a really interesting conversation. Cindy talks straight out the gap for about half an hour straight, but there's so much in it. So listen, come back to it. And if you want to find out more on Cindy's work, you can go to her website, which is www.prosperplusnow.com. But as always, I will have all her links on my website, karenmaloney.com, and click the podcast section. Enjoy. Welcome back, everybody, and thanks for joining for another episode. And this week I have Cindy James joining me. So first of all, you're very welcome, Cindy, and thanks for joining today.
Oh, it is my true pleasure.
Yeah, and just even after our initial little chit chat there before we started recording, I'm so excited to have this conversation all around money and helping us attract and master money better and without compromise. From your bio as well, you used to be a corporate litigation attorney to now what you call a practitioner of universal law. So maybe if you just share a little bit of that journey with us.
I certainly will. And I so love that. Universal law is so great because everybody wins. In man-made law, there's winners and losers. And when I practiced human law, I was really good at it. I could stack facts and argue and never lost a case. But I also got irritable bowel syndrome and a lot of feelings of, is this what I've come here to do? A real unsettled sense of a real agitation of the soul. Not that I think I have a special place in my heart for lawyers. I work with lawyers. I play with lawyers. I married a lawyer once. We're not married anymore. I believe that we need like this duality system, but to have it be infused from the truth of the oneness. And how I came to this is, my mission now is to up-level the understanding and the ability to access, cultivate, and master money without compromise, without limitation. And I remember growing up, I saw my parents struggle over this money thing. And I remember thinking, like, why are they so upset? And also, why was there no money for food at the end of the pay period? And why was it that my dad and mom would fight over it? And what is money? I remember saying to my dad, asking for something, and my dad, God bless him, I love him, he's such an amazing human being. He said, money doesn't grow on trees, Cindy. And I thought in my head, well, kind of it does, Dad. It's paper. Like, it does grow on trees. Like, why are we just not making more paper? I didn't understand that. So I had a great inquisitive mind. I was gifted with that by however we know the greater. I always do a litany: God, Great Spirit, Jesus, Buddha, Baba, science, nature, love, universe. I mean, however we know something infinite. And I always was interested in what was God, what were miracles, and why did people suffer and not be able to love each other and experience creativity in their lives, and watching my parents so struggle. And I remember the first time I realized around 9 or 10 years old that if I was hungry, I could walk around the neighborhood and be a mother's helper for an hour or clean something and get $1 or $2. And then we could go buy a loaf of Wonder Bread and peanut butter. I'm like, oh, I have some ability to do that. And I know that I came into this lifetime with the gifts of abundance. I know that in the Hindu lineage, the energy of Lakshmi, the goddess Lakshmi, she and I, we're like simpatico. But I lived in an environment where there was so much pressure on my parents to be able to provide what they wanted to provide for their children. And so I had a gift for gab, as you know, I'm speaking. I can do that. And I was in mock trial in high school, and then I was a communications major in college, and I was on the debate team. And what I learned from the debate team was this is how it would go down. You would get a set of facts and be told to argue a certain proposition. And then the next day, you'd have the same set of facts to argue the opposite. I have so learned that capital T truth and fact accumulation and persuasion are not the same. They can be, but they're not. And again, I was like first speaker in the debate club. I was top of my class. I say I was like foo-foo Fauntleroy, the top of everything. Didn't mean I was happy. Didn't mean I was harmonious. I was just gifted with an intellect and was channeling it in the best ways I could. And then I went to law school. I was either law school or med school. That's what I wanted. That was my choice. I wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. And I was also that because I really wanted as a woman to be that. And my dad, God bless him, always said to me I could be anything that I wanted. You know, my precious mom, who's not on the planet anymore, she skedaddled to the other side about 6 years ago. I do not believe there is no such thing as death.
Yeah.
Death is just a change of state. It's like, if anything, it just teaches us the true art of living, that we're going to take our last breath. And she wanted to be an wanted to go to University of Pennsylvania as an anthropology student. And the family lineage at the time said, no, you can't do that. Women can't do that. Be a nurse or a secretary. And she went to nursing school instead. But she always had this intense love of anthropology and archaeology.
Wow.
And I'm going to Egypt in a few days, from when this is recorded, on a sacred journey to Mother Egypt. And I bring my mom's spirit, and I know she's with me in that.
Amazing.
Getting back to, thank you, Karen. Thank you, Mama. Thank you,
Yeah.
Papa. Getting back to law just was shorter years. I decided to go to law school because it was 3 versus like 10 years. And I went to law school and top of my class and all that kind of stuff. And I was on law review. I wrote my equivalent of a dissertation on confidentiality agreements and the First Amendment right of speech and religion and thought. And then I became a trial lawyer because I just wanted to prove that love was real. It was back in the 80s where we were wined and dined, you know, when jobs were guaranteed when you graduated from a school, which is not the case anymore.
No.
And if you did well, you were guaranteed that. And I was wined and dined by the big firms in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, where I lived at the time. And I chose the firm that represented a spiritual institution because I wanted to work for the firm that had a soul. As I was still always in my lineage, like soul and law, and what it really means to augment the truth. And I came to find that that was not the case. There was beautiful souls in that law firm. And what I did as a trial lawyer for at least half of the time so conflicted with everything I believed to be eternally true. So when I became pregnant with my fourth child, I've reproduced 4 times, 4 offspring. They've
Congrats.
sprung off me, as I like to say. They're all adults now.
Aw.
I had stopped practicing law after I became pregnant with my second. I was privileged to have the choice, as I like to say, because I wasn't doing either job well, in my estimation. And I just wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, whatever that meant. And I remember this woman, like corner office partner at the law firm that I was working at, when I told her that I was going to do that, she said, "Cindy, you'll be so bored." I tried that for a while and I became so consumed with dinner parties and this and that, you'll never be satisfied. And I thought to myself, A, you don't know me. B, I've never been bored because I have a cast of characters in my mind always keep me company. I mean, there's just always thoughts going on. And C, I then knew that I just wanted to devote myself to what new life could be and parenting. And I learned a lot. I learned that it's not idealized and it's hard. And the only handbook is do your best and forgive and move forward. And but I started when I got a babysitter, what I would do, I would go to Barnes and Nobles back when bookstores you could just go and there were big comfy chairs. And I would get a whole stack of books on the origins of religion. I was born a Catholic, and I mean, I love that Catholic means universal. And so the origins of Catholicism, I read about the Council of Nicene in 325 AD and how the Emperor Constantine brought all the documents together, well, the ones that they could amass at that time. And I read everything I could about the origins of all religion and self-development. And Wayne Dyer became like my crush, like celebrity self-help star. I mean, he skedaddled to the other side a few years ago, and I was just like 6 months before I was going to Maui for one of his retreats. I'm like, oh, wait. I believe he's one of my personal guides now. I talk to him often, and he talks to me. That's the kind of crazy, by the way, Karen. I believe that we can be crazy miserable, crazy limited, or crazy happy and crazy infinite and supply. Like being in a body is already crazy. Like what I have to poop. Like what? I have to put what in my mouth and then my body does what? And sex, if you think about sex, like when I was told about sex, I'm like, well, that's just disgusting. Like it's crazy. But it's also crazy great when you come into your fuller aspect of it and the amazement of what bodies can do and how things can happen.
Yeah.
So I decided that I was going to devote myself to healing and whatever that was. I started with feng shui, which I thought was feng shui when I first read it. It's feng shui, the ancient Chinese art of the placement of color and thing to facilitate the positive flow of energy or qi. Let's just breathe that in. I mean, how great is that? That we can, our environment affects our consciousness and we have some power that's so immediate. And I did things in my house. I remember clearing out the relationship corner. One of the things with my ex-husband, I used to get mad at him that he didn't initiate going on vacations. And so I cleaned out the romance corner of my bedroom and hung a pink crystal and put 2 things there. I was following the feng shui guidelines. And also the high abundance corner of your house is where a room is the far left corner. The feng shui has a bagua that diagnoses and areas of house that have to do with energy. And I had a dripping ceiling and a leaking toilet in the abundance corner of my house, just money down the drain. So I toot sweet called a plumber, and the plumber came and fixed it. And within days, my husband said, "Hey, let's go to the shore." And he was the person that was the money was flowing through at the time, and he got some great raise. And I was like, well, I think that's fabulous. So to bring that into where I am now, when I became pregnant with my fourth child, it was after getting a free Reiki healing and energy healing. And the pregnancy was like a miracle birth. It's like Jesus, Mary, Cindy, and my youngest child. I was like, I don't know how that happened. And that child I was told was going to die in utero, and that even if he survived, it would be so malformed that it would be unconscionable for me to bring this child to term. That was told to me at 22 weeks. And I then I said, whatever it was that might have augmented that pregnancy and whatever energy that you can hang a crystal and clear out a corner and things change kind of energy, I was going to devote every bit of the grand intellect that I've been blessed with and the power and the motivation and the enthusiasm for life and love and what God truly means for to save my baby. And I did. And I remember saying to the high risk perinatologist, I said, is there any danger to me in bringing this baby to term? And he said, no. And he started to argue. And I said, then that's enough. This is my choice. Whatever you believe about choice, the choice to not abort is inherent in any choice. And I asked him to keep his moral opinions to himself and only give me medical opinions. And then I dove into this. And God bless my ex-husband. I mean, he came along for the ride, coerced a bit, but this is our baby. And when this younger child was born, we were told we had to go to Children's Hospital Philadelphia right away for massive surgery for organ malformation after going to CHOP every week for ultrasounds and questions. And the only question my ex-husband asked was, could this be a mistake with this baby? And the answer was absolutely a resounding no. And so 3 days postpartum, if you've had a baby, when your milk comes in, for me, it's a feverish whole body event. And the more children you have, the kind of bleeding after childbirth, I like to say it's like hemorrhaging rather than just bleeding. And it's a thing. And pregnancy came hard to me too. Next lifetime, I've asked for a lifetime off from child rearing, and everyone needs a holiday. For sure, even multiple holidays from romantic love and children, because it takes a lot of attention. And so I'm holding this baby, and they do the most hideous tests that I can look at it in the present moment with love and compassion for what they did to that child to prepare the child for surgery, and then bringing him back to me and nursing him as he was screaming. And my mother was there, and my ex-husband was there. And this doctor comes out, and he had a Russian accent, as I remember. And he said, "Why is this baby here?" And in tears, I mean, we were all crying at that point. I mean, not my ex-husband in that level, but I listed all the malformations, and he said, "Your baby is perfectly healthy. Take him home." And that is what led me into this life. I have been a teacher of self-transformation and healing arts for decades. I have had a private practice since that time, and I started by working with women who wanted to conceive. And just that practice is fabulous, but it generally only takes 1 to 3 sessions with me. It's like 1, 2, 3 crunch, like the owl with the Tootsie Pop. Boom. Because these souls that want to come in, and the people that find me, they want their parents to have some awakening, like the curiosity and consciousness.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful name for this podcast. And that's exactly, oh my gosh, Karen, I'm having what I call a crowngasm right now. My head is open and it's flowing through. That is exactly what these new souls coming to parents want. They want their parents to be curious and conscious about what they are and what existence is, because these new ones coming in, I believe like what you and I get to do in this moment is radiate pure energy of love and potential as we awaken, so that they do the actual work of transformation. Like they're the ones in the trenches. And so I've done this for many years. And then about 4 years ago, it was time for the marriage to end. It was time for my younger brother, Stephen, to skedaddle to the other side. It was time for my adult offspring to embark on their journey. And I found myself living in an apartment because I wanted to be around people. I took my lease March 15th of 2020 because I wanted to be around people. All my children were grown. And then lockdown, like get the doors coming down. And I was like, this isn't my beautiful house. This isn't my beautiful wife. How did I get here? And I then went into deep meditation for months about what could I use my gifts and skills for humanity, and what is so deeply needed. And I had led workshops on living in true abundance and taken people on retreats around the world that would incorporate that. And what I felt, that small still voice, that voice of the intuition, was about people the heinousness of what happens comes from the perspective of lack, that there's not enough, and specifically around the energy of what people call money. And Cindy, this is to be your mission now. And I started something, again, crazy great rather than crazy limited, called the Galactic Council of Women, All Genders Welcome. And I say, why the fudge not? And I mean, like at a certain point, my mission with that forum, which is an amazing forum, linking up people all over the globe in this actual Guardians of the Galaxy. I say it's like a professional association of modern day superheroes, is to unleash our childhood imagination, to combine it with our deeply caring heart and adult consciousness, and then create a better world for all. Because this delusion of lack, I mean, the world is an illusion, I believe. Like they say that we're God's shadow, this all of whatever this is. But if we know and we then identify with the light, we can move the shadow like little bunny foo foo hopping through the forest. You know, we get to just do that. And that I thought about what would inspire groups of people in America to get on boats and go to Africa and capture people and to put them in hulls of ship and treat them horribly and come back over, and then whoever survived would be sold, and all of the heinous things that happened. I'm like, what would inspire that? And I thought that's imagination in lack and scarcity consciousness.
Yeah.
Like there's not enough here. We got to go get that, and we'll make them do it. And what would motivate the male species to not want the females to vote or to have the equal amount of power agreements, which I call squiggles or money? But they must feel that they wouldn't have power to create. And power comes from the Latin posse, which means to be able. That ability to create is synonymous with being alive. And so when we then act from more of a limited, territorial, animal kind of consciousness, not the beauty of animals because they're spectacular, but from I only see in my purview and I will be prey if I'm not predator and I need to hunker down and have my own foxhole, whatever it is. When we act from that, which is really solar plexus, more focused living, the lower vibration, not the lower vibrational, but those energy centers that connect us to this earth, when they're not connected to the heart chakra and the upper energy centers that connect us to that from where we came and where we'll go to, and which infuses us with light and love, then we suffer. And oh boy, do we suffer. And we suffer in our psyches. I mean, in this very moment when this is being recorded, I am blessed with all the squiggles I need plus for my life. If I just chose to be me and didn't pour them into my ventures, which what I'm doing now, there's a Facebook group called Women Asterisks. I modify women all the time, attracting gobs of money and oodles of power, uplifting the world Facebook group. And the asterisk is where anyone that respects and reveres the feminine principle, the female body, and the energy of mother. All are welcome. All gender identifications are none. My youngest offspring now identifies as non-binary, transgender, queer. And I work with pronouns, and it's hard to tell that story of their birth with the their pronoun. So I just put that back in time and space. And this business of lack, what happens to people? So in the Galactic Council Forum, which is a simple, powerful forum where you just join and receive, and it's very small squiggles intentionally to make it be available worldwide. People, if they want, get their superhero council name. And I tell you, that is a defining moment for humans when we know we have the archetype of daughter or child or coworker or teacher or lawyer, whatever our archetype is, podcast host, whatever it might be. But we each have a never before in creation new facet of the divine to bring. And my superhero Galactic Council title name is the Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love. I just see me and you, Karen, on a playground at 5 years old on recess from kindergarten and we want to play a new game. And I'll be like, well, what should we play? I'm like, okay, Karen, I want to be the Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love. And you say, cool.
Yeah.
You don't say, oh, that's stupid. Maybe some kids that weren't cultivated in their freedom of imagination would say that. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. What does that mean? That means that I get to rule and transfer the infinite abundance of the universe and radiate the love of the divine to everyone and everything. Oh my God, that's so great. And then Karen, I'll even ask you, like, what do you want to be?
Yeah, well, like that, the possibilities are endless.
They really are.
Yeah.
And so when people come to that, and there's a system that I have with people on how to come to that, and it's so amazing. My niece, my goddaughter, Maya Rose, my brother Stephen, who's Skedaddle's daughter, I was just in Seattle visiting them, and she's about to turn 14, and her family is all members of the Galactic Council. I drafted my family in the beginning a few years ago. Come on. My one niece, her superhero name is the Ever Evolver. She certainly is. She's older. And my niece, Maya Rose, came into hers, and her name is the Perceptor. And her tagline is, the natural ease of my presence provides an unshakable foundation for true harmony among people. That's a 13-year-old going on 14. She has said to her mother, to me, that everything changed in her being. She felt vibration in her body and was describing it when she felt that life purpose in a new creative way. There's never been a preceptor whose natural presence provides an unshakable foundation for true understanding among people. There's just never been that before. I mean, there's been a daughter, there's been a student, there's been a harp player, there's been all those things. And so now, coming into this mission for humanity, as we straddle the tearing down of the old and the building of the new, I say it is our greatest blessing to raise our hand and say to the infinite within us and around us, pick me. I'll represent the golden age. I'll dissolve those delusions of lack. And I will join together for the feminine force of money, which is that nurturing, creative, go play. Here, do this. I'll help you that, the support. Not that there's not masculine initiating energy. To take it out of gender, it's activating energy we call masculine, and nurturing energy we call feminine. And both are surely inherent in what these power agreements are. But what the world needs now, the active principle of the masculine in distortion, is full of pressure. And it eats the psyche of men and women and all gender identities, just inside out. And it happens to me, and there's no rational reason for it on screens. I say money is just now, it's not on paper anymore. It's on a piece of plastic or it's on a squiggle on a screen. I say to everyone, if Bitcoin teaches us nothing, people, is that money is just what we freaking make up.
Yeah.
And we have agreed it's limited, and we can agree it's not. And I say this to you, Karen, personally, and to everyone and everything. If money is just an agreement among people of what has power, I wholeheartedly agree that you have everything you need plus. Everyone listening to this, and everyone really that exists, has ever existed or will ever existed. And in this very moment, you too, to have that. And the plus, my empire, being an empress, is called Prosper Plus. And prosper, the definition is to thrive, to flourish, to grow. And prosperity, of course, we associate it with money and abundance and ability. Yes. And the plus is always the ability to serve and share. Our basic needs include the ability to work with you personally, Karen, or me, to receive your programs or my now flagship, like what I came to this planet for. I have been doing, it's called the Fierce Feminine Prosperity Power Experience. I've never experienced anything like it, where the infusion through me and through the group and through those that are receiving this system, this formula for really realigning with the truth within, it's incredible. So for you to have everything you need plus means that you can take a trip, you can get a massage, you can take a great program, you can have the home of your dreams, and you can have enough to share. Because when it comes down to it, who would be hurt by you and I having everything we need plus? Nobody, really, unless we're in lack, scarcity consciousness and in the old competition for resources.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
What you've shared is so interesting. It's probably the longest monologue ever. We're pretty much nearly finished the conversation, and you've shared so much and just kept talking, which is brilliant. But I really do want to pick up on some questions to break it down and make it more tangible for people as well. Because what you just shared there, just to pick up on your most recent thing, was the fact that, who would care if we're abundant, whatever. And that should be the truth, and that is the truth. But a lot of people do care. So how do they change their own limiting money beliefs to bring in more and to be more abundant?
That is a beautiful question. And there is a simple and little more complex answer. The simple answer is that each human being and each personality needs to make a choice in this moment and a lot of moments, and re-choose and choose which consciousness, which ideology is going to be the foundation by which they build their life on. They choose whether they're going to build on the truth that they are an infinite being having a temporary experience, and that the universe is eternally benevolent, and however you know the greater is not a limited, punishing, rewarding God, but an energy that separates, like where a spark of all that is. We first have to make and continue to make a commitment to the truths by which we're going to build our castles. And that takes the forgiving ourselves for all the experiences of lack we've ever had, are having, or will have. That feeling, I know that for myself, when I feel that feeling coming up, when I see markets crashing and I see what's happening with wars and people starving and what's happening in family structures, when I feel that, which is usually a tightening in my solar plexus, I take a deep breath into that and I say, Cindy, connect into universal truths. So I invite your listeners to take some deep breaths right now and to feel the sensations in their body that are associated with not having enough or the fear of not having enough in the future, and allow something greater. Use our imagination, which is our divine force, and allow our body to relax. Relax your jaw, your pelvic floor, your shoulders. Open your hands up. Your fingers are like antennae to receive. Wiggle your toes so they're not all crunched in. And then connect to this vast planet called Earth. She's a feminine energy. She's a mother energy. And she has more than enough for all of her children to flourish. She has more than enough to share. She is an aspect of the greater created for us to have this experience of forgetting we're infinite and then remembering. And then I think it is so incumbent upon each of us to up-level the conversations we're having with those that we love. My brother Michael and I started something called the Wonder Irish Twins because we're 11 months apart. And he was a Harrier jet pilot, a colonel in the Marines, and all of that. And we've done some podcasts. It's been on hiatus for a while, but we're about to resurface it due to his schedule, where we're devoted to up-leveling the conversation among siblings and family members and friends, because it's so easy to smoke the crack pipe of lack, of fear. It's so easy to say, I'm so tired, or did you see what happened in the world? It's so easy. And there's a rush of what's called negative pleasure of that. We find our commonality with the lamenting or judging what is really crappy. It's not denial. I don't advocate denial. I heard from the Abraham Hicks lineage that what Jesus meant by turn the other cheek was not take more abuse, but to turn from that which pains you to that which is going to empower you. And that's what I think it behooves us now. We can still advocate, but what we have tended to do as a human species is fight the darkness rather than advocating for the light. We can do the exact same thing, but one, the fighting for the darkness is depleting. And I mean, even if you have bazillions of squiggles, you're not going to be happy. Your relationships aren't going to be whole. And then to advocate for the light, which means joining together. Listening to this podcast right now, your listeners are doing that. We're doing that. You and I together saying, yes, we will join together and we will have a conversation or a monologue, which I so apologize for. That is so of my nature, and it's one of my flaws to heal, Karen and everyone. I'll take a deep
We're all
breath.
learning. We're all learning all the time.
Well,
No, like that. There was lots of information in it as well, but there was so many different things I wanted to pick up, and then I'm like, oh, we're gone too far on to go back and pick up on all of them.
mhm.
But no, I love what you say there as well. But that's the power. Like we are all creators. We don't need to create, and everything in this reality is made up. And it's not all bad. Like this technology, some of it is incredible. It's that imagination, and that's as Neville Goddard says, our imagination is God. That's where all our power lives. So if we don't choose something different than what we know, if we don't use our imagination to create a new scene, to create new language, to create a new image, or whatever it is for ourselves, it's very difficult to move out of our current situation. So when it comes to money as well, and people who are stuck in that lack, what is ways that they can use their imagination to see new scenes for themselves, or what could they say to themselves that might be so conflicting or will be so conflicting and so contrary to their current situation, but to help elevate them and move them out of that situation as well?
Well, since you're a Neville Goddard person, and so am I, like love Neville and his bombastic old-timey
Yeah.
prose and how what he does. Neville talked about this, and so many traditions do. What we impress ourselves with when we first wake up and we go to sleep
Mm.
are so very important. It's in classic communication, it's primacy and recency. What you hear first and what you hear last has the most effect. To when you first wake up in the morning, there's things that Neville has described, like he said that this meditating on your navel or kundalini. He's like, what is all this meditation nonsense? The
Mm.
kundalini and the navel. Meditate only on one thing. That is the feeling of the wish fulfilled. That is what will bring you to. And when Wayne Dyer talks about the Tao, it's and the Abraham Hicks lineage is about bringing into your body the sensations that you would feel if the circumstances you wanted were occurring. How would that make you feel? Start your day with that sensation. And I can tell you from working with people individually and collectively for decades, that is very hard in the beginning
Mhm.
because the but comes. But it's not there. But if you had
Mhm.
the romantic love of your dreams, how would you feel? If you had all the squiggles plus, how would you feel? Give yourself, imagine that, which is accessing your divine force, as you so beautifully said, and persistently. I love your recent podcast on persistence. It's persistent. We have to keep persistently bringing ourselves back to that. And then this is what I add to that. And then say to the universe, however you know the greater, whatever that is, delight me today. Delight me. I will now choose, rather than seeking opportunities to be offended and feel the lack that may actually be there in the duality or not, but I want to seek occasions to be delighted, to experience pleasure and wonder. And I will use my faith in myself and others in life and the greater to call out the best in everyone. And when I encounter those lower vibrational feelings and moment, I will radiate that just like a toddler that's having a huge tantrum that wants to do something dangerous, like maybe drive the car. And you say, but no, you can't, love. I know you think you can, but no, to that lower conscious voice. And then to seek out. Joe Dispenza said this, and I love it. In an age of information, ignorance is a choice. Never before, at the push of a button, free on YouTube, you, me, him, so many, the most ancient teachings and mainstream wisdom available. And then to seek out what to actually do with that. That's what the Galactic Council of Women is for, and the Gobs and Oodles group and the Fierce Feminine. It's like, then what do we actually do with that? How do we play together with other people? Seek that out. Seek similarly spirited, not minded. I mean, you can have different political affiliations, religions, beliefs on viruses and vaccines, like all the controversies. I say I'm a no controversy platform, contra against the verse. Let people have their different beliefs if you want. I mean, really follow that, but seek occasions to find the harmony and let that be how you go to sleep at night, too, reveling in that and taking that risk. Like, I know that you must have taken a risk to start this podcast. I know, and probably still are. I'm taking
Yeah.
risks. I
Every
mean,
day.
to call it and to get a superhero name is risky. Like, when I just recently went back to my college and people knew that, 3 decades ago, I was going to law school and telling people, what do you do now, Cindy? Oh, I said, oh, I'm the Empress of Infinite Supply and Radiant Love of the Galactic Council of Women. All genders welcome, starting a new empire. I mean, it's like Charlie Brown, wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
Being willing to dissolve pride and shame so we can live in dignity and humility and master money. That mastering money is that then we say, as a spark of all that is, I call in the resources of the divine. And if you know the energy of Lakshmi and the different representations of it, I call on that energy now to infuse my consciousness and my life, and I attract. I become a beacon, a willing, open beacon to dissolve lack and to live a new golden age in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love what you said there as well, sharing Neville's, feeling of the wish fulfilled. And so many traditions have spoken about that. And it comes back to what you said earlier about the crazy. Like, fine, you can think it's crazy to believe in the invisible or put your faith in something you can't see yet. Great, think it's crazy. But I always say as well, play, be curious, have fun with it, try it out for yourself and see what happens. Because clearly the crazy of staying overly fixated on it doesn't help. You feel so much worse. So when we have the willingness as well to play, to be curious, to try it for ourselves, and when it comes back to when you're talking about your Empress of Infinite Supply and your niece's superhero name as well, it's like the idea we hold of ourselves, how we perceive ourselves, it shifts everything, and it's the reality we will experience. So that's why the game is always us with us in the first place. Play, use your imagination, be curious. There is nothing limited in the universe, but it can be if we believe it to be, absolutely. So,
One quick thing I'll say is
yeah.
that I look at the addiction crisis and I look at how, millennials feel about my generation and all. And I think, like, who would want to grow up to be like an adult that's so full of pressure or accumulates in ignorance or whatever it might be? Like, am I living a life that a young person would want to say, yeah, I want to grow up. I don't want to numb myself and divert and all of that. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. Like, that being a role model for these children that to grow into adulthood means better, not lesser, and giving them hope for the future. And that's what I think the adults that are listening can do for that, is free ourselves up and take the risks to be curious and conscious. And even if some people, hey, listen, I've had a ton of people that are just like, I don't like what you're drinking. I think you're nuts. I'm like, well, Godspeed, they thought I was nuts when I was drinking the mainstream soup too. So
Yeah,
whatever it is, it's like, and there's
exactly.
plenty of us like spirited people out there, and we find ourselves on the Ethernet or the
Yeah.
interwebs, as my brother Michael says, talking about attracting and mastering money without compromise, which means without limiting that promise that the divine made to us, that divine promise. We go through the valley of the shadow of death, and then goodness and mercy shall follow us all the days of our lives. And we keep that promise to ourselves to come here and play this game of forgetting and then remembering and then sharing, like this moment.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Love that. And that's exactly it. And, remembering and bringing that into our awareness, like you mentioned at the beginning as well, this duality. And when we forget that we are the divine, we come from the divine. So we have all the powers. But when we forget that and overly fixate, that's when all the issues really start. So it's remembering that again and opening up and building that connection and playing and be curious. Like you said, use your imagination. What a wonderful conversation as well. And please, before you leave, if there's anything you feel called to share, please do. And please share where people can find out more in your work.
Oh, I just want to share where people can find me, and to also that there's a quote from Meher Baba, spiritual master, that says something like this: forgiveness of the created is embedded in the act of creation. Love alone is real, all else is illusion. And so we've had these wounds and they're happening right now. And they might keep happening. I said, let's be forgiveness ninjas where we can at every turn forgive and move forward. And I so wholeheartedly invite your listeners to join me to download my Prosper Plus app, which is free. It's prosperplus.app. And on that, there is a free Prosperity for Life training, expansive Prosperity for Life training. It's a multi-module which incorporates, it just matters to me, to people to have access to it. If they don't yet have the squiggles, and they can upgrade to premium on that app, which is still very little squiggles. And that's the Galactic Council of Women, All Genders Welcome, where you just join and receive. Many, many people are incognito on that. Many are not. But and then to join my Women Asterisks, or anyone that respects and reveres the feminine, attracting gobs of money and oodles of power, uplifting the world free Facebook group, which is at prosperplusnow.com. And join me. Every week you get meditations and inspirations and a community of women. Plus, there's only one man so far that has joined it, and he's one of the lawyers I used to practice with.
Wow.
And I like to shout out to Elliot, because that takes real dignity and masculine, really knowing the masculine within him to join something like that and want to support women creating new life. So I invite everyone to join that, and then to explore this fierce feminine prosperity power system. When you're ready to go supernova, this is that.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for joining and sharing today. And like always, I will have all links as well from the show notes on my website. So thank you. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening. And before you go, I would love to ask you a massive favor. If you enjoyed this episode or any episode of the podcast, I would love for you to leave a short review on Apple Podcasts to help it grow. If you could do that, I would greatly appreciate it.